What is going on, everybody, and welcome to episode number 24 of the podcast. I got a really awesome returning guest, Mr. Swamp Dweller, in the house. Mr. Swamp Dweller, how are you doing, my man?
Not too bad, man. Thanks for having me on again.
Anytime, dude. I know we tried to do this recording on Monday, and just things kept getting in the way. So finally, as of now, my time at least, it's Wednesday night, and actually, this time of recording marks my 3rd year anniversary when it comes to my YouTube channel.
Nice.
Yeah, it's for 3 years today, so pretty cool. I've had a lot of good times with it so far and hope to have some good times in the future. So I got to tell you a story, though, before we get started with this, dude, because even though we are on time, I thought we were going to be late to recording, and I'll tell you why. So what happened is I didn't want to cook food for me and the kids. I was tired. I'm just been having kind of a rough day. I didn't really want to do that, And so I figured, well, I'm just going to do some Grubhub because why not, and get some Chick-fil-A. Do you have Chick-fil-A where you live?
Yeah.
Oh, have you ever had Chick-fil-A?
You got the dank nugs, man.
Dude, their chicken is juicy, and I love it so much with Chick-fil-A sauce. Oh, my God. But I decided to order some of that, and they have this. It's called a market salad. It's pretty much like a chicken salad with you put balsamic dressing on it, and then it's got like almonds and pecans, cranberries, strawberries, blueberries, apples. Like, it's so effing delicious, bro. And I'm obsessed with them as of now. So I ordered that. I ordered some nuggets. I ordered my wife a grilled wrap for when she gets home from work. And dude, it took like 40 minutes to get here, and then finally it said it was going to be here by 8 o'clock my time. And I'm like, okay, so it's like 8:10 at this point. And I'm like, dude, where is my food? They're never this late. And then so I looked up to track where the people were, and it said that it was delivered like 10 minutes ago. But Daddy's sitting here with no Chick-fil-A, so there's a problem here. So I was like, well, what the F do I do? And so I called the number of the Grubhub driver who didn't answer. I also texted her, and she didn't text me back. And I'm like, dude, I'm not about to be $41 down, like I bought food. I want to eat my goddamn food. And so I finally called Grubhub, and I'm talking to some service rep guy, and he's like, oh man, I'm so sorry, let me contact her. And I'm like, yeah, and by the way, I want some sort of credit on my account. I want some sort of a discount next time, because I order through them a lot. So I'm like, treat me with, better, I'm a loyal customer. And so he's like, I can give you 10% off your next order. I'm like, yeah, dude, that's fine. I'm like, I'm not hard, dude, I'm easy. And so he's like, let me contact the lady. And so he calls her, and then he calls me, and he goes, oh, she said she dropped it off. And I'm like, yeah, no duh, but I don't have my food. I think she dropped it off at the address to the street behind my street, because we have the same house numbers, just different street names. And trust me, dude, as a mailman, I have to pay attention to that kind of stuff when I deliver mail. So I kind of would think if you're in the delivery service business, you would pay attention to that too. And so finally I get a hold of this lady, and she was like, yeah, I dropped off your order. And I'm like, yeah, I know. Like, I think you dropped it off to the wrong house. And she was like, and then she said my address, and I was like, yeah, that's my address, but there's no Chick-fil-A. And she was like, oh, well, I rang the bell and I knocked. I'm like, yeah, dude, probably at the wrong house. I was sitting in my recliner next to my window this whole time. I could have seen you walk up, and so eventually she went back to the house where she dropped it off, and she was like, oh, yeah, here it is, just sitting on the porch. Like, no one grabbed it. So I picked it up, and I'm going to drop it back off to you. And I'm like, yeah, dude, please. And so she finally, like, pulls up, and I'm standing up front, and I'm like, see, I told you, look at the street signs, you're on the wrong street. And she was like, I'm sorry. And I'm like, it's fine, dude, I'm hungry and I have a podcast to do, so be gone. And so I came back in, and then some other representative from Grubhub calls me, and she was like, oh, so what happened? And I told her the story. And not only did my food come to the wrong address and then come to me late, I opened it up, and all there is inside is a deluxe chicken sandwich with fries, dude. I did not even order that. They got my order completely wrong, dude. So I told them that, and they were like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. And so they were like, okay, we gave you a full refund. And I was like, yeah, duh, because you didn't give me my food. Of course you're going to refund it. And I said, well, I would also like some credit added to my account for next time I order. And she was like, she's like, I just did you a favor. I was like, what was my favor? And she was like, I refunded your money. I'm like, you're goddamn right you refunded my money. You didn't give me the food, so you're not doing me a favor. you're doing me a refund for the food you did not give me. I want something extra for the inconvenience of being hungry longer, you know? And she was just like, I'm sorry, at this time I cannot give you any more than just a refund. I'm like, dude, your Grubhub services, you can give me a discount. And she was like, I'm sorry. I was like, you know what? I gotta eat. I got swamp dwellers waiting for me. And so I hung up.
It's funny as hell, dude. That's
Yeah.
terrible.
It's
That sucks.
horrible.
I,
No
s- I don't
complaint.
use any of those services anymore. I deleted them. I took off all my payment information and deleted them all from my phone. Like I can't use Uber Eats, Grubhub, none of that no more. I actually almost got in a fight with a Grubhub driver, so that's why I deleted Grubhub.
No, I
Grubhub's
believe it.
just I can't deal with those companies anymore. It's like they're stealing your food, getting your order wrong, or just taking forever, dude. It's like I might as well just go out and drive myself. By the time 45 minutes has passed, I probably would have already been home and eaten it.
100%, dude. But I can tell you from being a dad with two young kids who are insane at all times, it's so much easier to have somebody go buy my or pick up my food and then drop it off to me than it is to try to get two crazy kids in a car and out of a car, also with Chick-fil-A in your hand. You know, it's freaking not
Yeah, for
easy,
sure.
dude. I'm a parental athlete, you would say, but yeah, dude. So it was a little frustrating, but you know, it is what it is. But sorry, everybody who was like not expecting me to ramble about a Chick-fil-A story. I had to share it because it literally just happened. So, anyways, let's get to the purpose of why we're all here. And the reason we're here is because we're going to review a little movie that came out back in 2009 called The Last House on the Left. Apparently, this was a remake from Wes Craven's original movie Last House on the Left that came out in 1972. Have you seen the original movie Swamp Dweller?
Yeah, I have, and I feel like it is a strong film. I like it a lot.
Wow, I actually have not seen it. All I did was I kind of skipped through it one time and just kind of like skimmed through it, and it just looked really bad, and so I didn't full on watch it. But you think it's good though, right?
I mean, I like Wes Craven movies. Plus, I like a lot of classic, 70s and 80s horror movies. So I think it's a solid movie for the decade. But like for comparing it to this one, I mean, I still think it's better.
You think the original is better than this one?
Yes, I think that it's told the story better, and it was a lot more tasteful.
Okay, tasteful. I haven't even seen the original, but I can probably agree that maybe the first one is more tasteful. I do want to see it though. It's something I have wanted to see. And my apologies for my daughter in the background. My kids did not go to sleep on time, and so if they make a little bit of noise in the background, please forgive me. At least this isn't a narration video, where it needs to be like pure quiet. Um, all right, so this movie came out in 2009, Last House on the Left. Let's get into our ratings, not our ratings, but what this movie was rated. Rotten Tomatoes gave this one a 42%, which is a little low, in my opinion. I think it should be higher. I like this movie. And then IMDb gave this one a 6.5 out of 10, which is actually fairly high for IMDb. Like, it seems like a lot of the movies we've been doing have stayed around the 5.5 range, and this one definitely jumped up. So that seems like a lot more people liked this movie than the actual critics did. 42%, man. Rotten Tomatoes. Do you feel like that's a fair score? Do you feel it's a little high or a little low?
Personally, I feel like that's probably fine. I mean, I feel like it should probably be more like 40, but
Okay.
I think 42 is fine. Yeah, I think that's about fair.
Dude, I am sorry for my daughter. She's wearing my Xbox headphones, and so she's being a little crazy. Yeah, okay. So 40, you would think it'd be about a 40%, so that makes sense. I understand that. I think it's a little too low, personally. This movie had a budget of 15 mils, a milli, and then the box office it made 45.2 mille a milli. Yeah, so it had a 30.2 pretty much profit. So that's really good for this movie. Good job for them. This movie was written by Adam Aleka and Carl Ellsworth, but it was directed by Dennis Iliadis, if I'm pronouncing that right. He directed a few movies. One is called Hardcore from 2004, Delirium from 2018, which I think I actually just saw on Netflix as I was scrolling through last night. So I might have to stop by and watch that one. And then, if I'm saying it right, the movie's called Plus One from 2013. You seen any of those movies, man?
I've believe I've seen Delirium in passing, like you mentioned, but I don't think I've watched any of those.
Yeah, haven't heard much about the movies that he's directed. more so just this one. So the plot of The Last House on the Left goes a little something like this. After kidnapping and brutally assaulting two young women, a gang unknowingly finds refuge at a vacation home belonging to the parents of one of the victims, a mother and a father who devise an increasingly gruesome series of revenge tactics. So this movie stars Garrett Dillahunt as Krug, Aaron Paul as Francis, Ricky Lindholm as Sadie, and then Spencer Treat Clark as Justin. So that's the bad guy gang, and then Monica Potter as Emma, who plays the mom. Tony Goldwyn, who plays John, the dad, who I recognized instantly from the movie Ghost. He's the antagonist in that movie. Have you seen that one?
Potentially. It sounds familiar, but I can't really put an image in my head.
Dude, Patrick Swayze, Demi Moore, Whoopi Goldberg.
No, probably not then.
Dude, I don't know what kind of man you are. Like if you believe you are a manly man who can like, oh, nothing makes me sad. I listen to metal, brutal. Or if you're like me, who's like a complete softy sap. But I'm a softy, dude, and like that movie Ghost is a tear jerker, dude. They
Oh no.
jerk tears out of my eyes. It is so good though, bro. Like I got it on Blu-ray. I'm ready to watch it. It's so good, dude. You got to see it. But Tony Goldwyn, he plays the antagonist in that one. And then Martha McIsaac plays Paige, and then Sara Paxton, who's the star of this movie, she plays Mary. All right, my man. So, when was your first time seeing this film?
A long, long time ago, probably around the time it came out, to be honest. 2009 was is a year I like to hype up a lot, mainly for memes. But 2009 was a pretty good year. Um, but but I think I saw this movie when it first came out, at least on DVD anyway, and that was probably like late middle school, maybe early high school for me. I think 2009 was my freshman year, so something like that.
Yeah, because you and I are about 5 years apart age wise. Because when this movie came out in 2009, 2009, I saw it in the theaters and I was already a year graduated from high school when it came out. And I remember this specifically because I was trying to like find some people to go with me to go see this movie, and like nobody wanted to go with me. They were all like, "Dude, you're a loser," and I was like, oh, "I know, no friends." But no, I just it was late at night and I wanted to see like a 10:45 showing of the movie. It was kind of like a spontaneous watch,
Yeah,
and had nothing to do. Was out of high school, like probably off the next day from work, and so I was like, "Come on, anybody, come on." Nobody was like, everyone's like, "Dude, I got work tomorrow or I got school or whatever." I'm like, "All right, dude, I'll go." So I went by myself, dude, like a nerd. I went to the movies by myself, and I can tell you, dude, it was like one of the best movie experiences I've ever had, bro. Just going by yourself is
yeah.
fantastic. Have you ever gone to the theaters by yourself?
Oh yeah, all the time. I'm one of those people that like hates asking people to do things with me because I'm a freaking awkward loser. So like I just go to places by myself and I watch like especially like terrible or not terrible, but what I feel are terrible horror movies. I definitely like to go watch them by myself because it's some weird like meditation thing. I don't know.
It really does, though. Like it relaxes you in a sense. And I think I figured out why. Because everybody goes with a group of friends or with a significant other or just one of like your best friends. That's usually the types of people you go to movies with. And so when you're sitting there with somebody, whenever like a cool or funny or scary, whatever type of moment happens in a movie, for some reason, at least when it's me, I'm always like concerned with, so what did that person think as well? So I'll kind of like, if something made me laugh a lot, I'll like look over at my friend or my wife and I'm like, you know what I mean? Like, it's kind of like that validation, like, yeah, that was funny, right? You know? And you're just kind of concerned about the person next to you. But when you go by yourself, you're not worried about anybody sitting next to you. You're just by yourself in your own little zone. And maybe I'm completely by myself in this, but I feel like that is why going by yourself is fun because you're not worried about anybody but yourself.
Yeah, definitely. I agree.
Yeah. Plus, it's just fun, dude. Especially if like there's a movie you want to see and other people don't want to see that one. It's like, well, then I'm not going to wait for anybody. I'm going to go by myself and have a blasty blast with me, myself, and I. um, but yeah, my first time seeing this one was in theaters by myself, 2009. Um, let's get into our ratings, dude. 1 through 10. One being a completely horrible movie. This is one of the worst movies you've ever seen. Five being just a completely average film. It's not good. It's not bad. It's pretty much just completely average. And then 10 being like, dude, this is a masterpiece. I love this film. It's one of the best I've ever seen. So I want to know what your score out of 10 is, Mr. Dweller.
I feel like after doing a lot of research on the ratings from people on like IMDb and stuff, is a big mixed bag. A lot of people either love it or they hate it. And I'm kind of a little bit in between. Even the original movie for this, I just feel like it's kind of a boring movie. Takes too long for stuff to happen. So this is gonna have to be a 4 for me, to be honest. I feel like I'm gonna get a lot of hate for that, but I
Wow.
feel like this is a 4. I don't feel like this is really the greatest movie I've ever seen, to be honest.
Okay. I mean, I can understand that's not everybody's cup of tea. I'll be honest though, a 4 is a little surprising, dude. I thought that you would like it a little bit more than that. I mean, we're still in the spoiler free section as we always are for the first little bit of the podcast, but I kind of felt like there is moments in this where I could see why people would be literally turned off from the movie. But I feel like there's so many better moments that you can kind of forgive those really bad moments because of how good other moments are in the movie. Specifically, the second to third act. Once the first act ends, I think it just skyrockets and goes to 100 pretty much. Like, so this is going to be an interesting one because I feel like you and I are going to disagree a lot on this. And dude, honestly, bring it on, dude. I'm excited to hear what you liked, don't like, and then things that I praise. I want to know what you think about those when we get to them in the spoiler section. So I'm going to give this one pretty much almost the opposite of what you would give it. I'm giving this one an 8.5 out of 10, dude. This is a high scorer for me. It's easily top 10 favorite scary movies of all time, if not maybe number 6. I don't think it's quite number 5. I'm not sure, but it's definitely top 10 of all time because I feel like this movie it's intense. A lot of the movie is very intense and makes you feel uncomfortable and on the edge of your seat for sure. It gives me mixed emotions. It goes from feeling very angry, very sad, very like, oh, come on, man, like do it, and that's like the best way I can describe it without giving anything away yet. And then I can definitely not shoot it up to a 9 or a 10 because there are some kind of bad parts where I feel like some of it was out of poor taste. There's a big scene that you and I are going to talk about, and I know you know what scene I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to get into it, and I'm going to tell you reasons why I like that scene. Right? Get ready for it. Why I like that scene, and it's kind of hard to think why would somebody like this specific scene that's pretty brutal for this movie. But I'll explain why when we get there.
For
Um,
sure.
so a 4, not bad. 8, not bad. That's the thing. That's why I like podcasts, man, because you get to give your opinion, I get to give mine, and then people who haven't seen this one, it just depends. Like maybe because they've heard you on a few episodes by now, they've heard me on every one, and if they like, oh, I think Swamp Dweller has some good opinions and stuff, and he thinks this is a 4, well, maybe I wouldn't like it. Or if they listen to me and they're like, I think we shouldn't be here, has really good points. Well, 8.5, I'm definitely checking this one out. So that's why I like podcasts, man. Get a lot of little flavors from everybody.
For sure.
All
I think
right.
my reasonings might surprise you of why I don't like this movie. And I think a lot of people are going to be surprised. The reason why I don't like this movie actually really don't have much to do with what's in the movie itself.
Interesting.
It's just how the movie progresses, to be honest.
Do you feel like there's pacing issues?
I think there's everything wrong with this movie. I think they should have took a little more time on some things, but we'll get into that.
Oh, we definitely will. Did you think it was entertaining at all?
Yeah, it was entertaining. I'd say it's definitely an entertaining movie. I think a lot of the scores give it a bad rep for not being entertaining for certain reasons, but I think even in the most extreme parts of the movie, it is still entertaining because I feel like realism makes it more entertaining in a sense because and if it's real, it's creepier, right? Because that could be you, that could be your brother, your sister, your aunt, your uncle.
So, without getting spoilery, what did you think about the bad guys of the movie? Did you think that their acting was good, corny, realistic? What kind of what kind of thoughts did you have when it came to the killers?
I feel like it's a good mixed bag. I feel like the dad and stuff, like I felt like they were really convincing. Like they did a real good job of making you hate everybody, that's for sure, and making you think that these bad guys were some real pieces of trash. And I think the acting was pretty solid. I think that the girl was the weakest link, to be honest. But I don't really know if that's the actor's fault or if it's just bad character writing, because I feel like they tried a bit too hard to make some of them too shallow in a sense. Like this did and said things that was like no normal person would say that. I guess you can't say that they're normal because they are pretty messed in the head, but I don't know. I feel like it was kind of a mixed bag. They did a good job making you hate them, but I think some of the acting and wording was a little bit awkward.
I think they were doing some of that classic, this is what a bad guy would do or say, haha, like a movie bad guy. But realistically, I don't feel like some of the stuff they said would be what somebody actually says if you're not in a movie, you know. And I
Yeah.
think you and I are kind of agreeing on that point. But on the flip side, though, I'd say the main bad guy, Krug, he is definitely awesome. I think, like as far as his acting, um, just his physical look. I really like his facial hair. To be honest, I think it looked pretty cool. And then I like his southernish draw that he kind of has a little bit when he talks. Like you've been a really cool customer, you know, and he's got that cool
Yeah.
sound. And then um, I just think he's a really good villain. And the other two were kind of like his sidekicks, but he is the main villain, and I think he did a pretty good job. So now let's talk about before we get into spoiler section. Let's talk about the main star of this movie, Sara Paxton, who plays Mary. What did you think about her? Do you think she did a good job in this movie?
She was awesome in this movie. This is actually when I first saw this movie back in the day, she was like my first introduction to Sarah Paxton, who has been in so many other awesome movies at this point. I think she is a natural born actress, in my opinion. She played this role so awesome. There are a few small things that I'll bring up later that aren't her fault, but are again just poor writing. But I think that she really brought that character to life and made you care about her so much more than I feel like anybody else who would have played that character would have.
Oh, right, totally. And I, sorry, I thought you were gonna keep going, and I was like, what else are you gonna say?
Oh,
um,
and she's hot, bro.
yeah, she's kind of cute, I guess. But she was like more cute when she was my age when I first saw the movie.
Yeah,
And
same.
now I'm a lot older, so now I'm not allowed to think she's cute anymore. um, Even though sometimes, dude, they like try a lot to make her look hot. Like specifically, she's a swimmer. I can tell you that much without spoiling the movie. She's a swimmer in the movie, and then she swims in the beginning, and then she takes a shower, and they had like water rolling down her body and stuff like that, and like it's supposed to be sexy, but like she's also like 17 or something.
Yeah, yeah.
So
That's right. I was mentioning that actually when I was watching it to my girlfriend. I was like, I feel really weird. She just looks like she's not really developed yet. I don't know. Like she looks super young in this movie. I don't know how old she actually was, but I
oh
just felt like
yeah,
super awkward. Like it just felt wrong.
it did, yeah. And it wasn't one of those like, I mean, even though she's a very attractive, beautiful woman, but when you're watching that, you're right, she doesn't have like a busty body or anything, you know, which is fine, but um she does kind of look younger, a lot younger. And even though the actress herself was probably older, the character she was playing was younger. And so for me, it was like, don't show me like sex appeal aspects of her, please. Just show me her character. I don't need to see her in a shower. You know, she's too young looking. Ugh. But I thought her acting was really well done too. Do you know off chance if Sarah Paxton is Bill Paxton's daughter?
I have no idea to be honest.
You know, I'm gonna have to look that up as we're talking. But I do want to talk about the parents a little bit. Also, again, reminder, spoiler free. Did you think that her parents did a good job as her parents?
Yes and no. I think she did pretty solid. I mean, I think they did pretty solid, excuse me. But I think they at the end they definitely did. But I feel like there was never really that connection that really there was never that like parental connection to their daughter at all in this movie, to be honest. It never actually made you think that there was like that this was a family, you know? Like I never got any vibes that like I don't know. They just didn't seem all that concerned. They seemed pretty. Essentially, I just feel like they didn't do the best job at making like a strong connection between them. It just felt like until later parts of the movie, things like you didn't really know that they had a relationship at all. You know?
Okay, sure. I'm gonna respectfully have to disagree, but I respect the opinion, and I'll tell you why. More so, I respect your opinion, but also disagree when we get into spoilers. And I feel like overall it's time just to wrap this part up and get into spoilers. So everybody, if you haven't seen this movie, I want to know, Mr. Swan Dweller, even though you aren't a fan of this movie, you can at least acknowledge a lot of people are. And so what kind of horror movie lover do you think would enjoy this type of movie?
If you're into revenge movies, this is it, man. Like if you're looking for a good, brutal, realistic film that's gonna make you not only disturbed but on the edge of your seat, this is definitely that. It's solid thriller. It's solid, um, disturbing content, but I would definitely say if you're a fan of like Spit on Your Grave and stuff like that, this is definitely the type of movie for you.
I also think if you're somebody who likes The Evil Dead, there's a specific part in that movie concerning one of the main girls and then something being inserted into herself. That's all I can really say. If you've seen The Evil Dead, you know what I'm talking about. And I
Mhm.
feel like if you're somebody who enjoys watching really twisted moments like that, then you might enjoy this movie because there's something also really twisted in this one too. And I feel like if you can stomach Evil Dead, you could probably stomach a movie like this, and then you're probably going to enjoy it from basically exactly what happens in this movie because of that thing. So, all right. So, yeah, dude, I think you were hitting the nail on the head. This is a perfect revenge flick. I think the only better revenge flick out there is John Wick, but that's two different types of movies. So, I feel like this is the best thriller type of revenge movie, in my opinion. All right, so that's going to wrap up the spoiler-free talk. So, everybody, thank you for listening. If you want to stick around for the next part of this podcast and you haven't seen this movie, I suggest you don't. I suggest that you watch this movie and then come back to this one. You don't want anything spoiled in it because there's a lot to unpack for sure. And then everybody else who's seen this movie and is ready to really unpack this one with me, Mr. Swamp Dweller, stick ahead right after this commercial break. All right, everybody, welcome back to the cast, and we are getting into spoilers right now. So, I'd like to start every spoiler section with asking my guests what their favorite or who their favorite and least favorite character was. So, who was your favorite character and why, Mr. Swamp?
My favorite character was what's his name? The son's name.
Justin?
Justin. Yeah, I like Justin a lot. I like the story of going like how like just because you're around and raised by completely terrible people doesn't mean you're going to be a terrible person yourself. And I really liked that story a lot in this movie, which is actually one of the things that kept me going watching this movie at times when I kind of got like turned off by certain distasteful parts. But it was mainly for some reason I had like this connection with Justin that really just made me like him a lot. I would say he's my favorite character. My least favorite character obviously has to be Justin's dad. Guy's trash, man. Come on, bro. But yeah, that would probably be my favorite and least favorite characters.
Okay, I can get on board with that. I think Justin is a great choice, man. That's excellent. And I think the reason why you can relate to him is because he's kind of like the stoner type, and like you and I are kind of like the stoner type kind of guys too, and we're not like your super clean cut dudes. Like we like metal, like,
Yeah,
and he's got long hair, and you can kind of tell that he seems like somebody that like we probably knew in high school, and
definitely.
definitely. And so he's a good choice, and he's also like a really good actor too. I felt like his acting in this movie was really good when it came to like when they're in the hotel room, and that's when all the bad guys come into the hotel room, and they're like, "Well, Justin, you got some guests," and he's like, "Oh, sorry," and he's like, "No, no, no, it's good. Like, let him stay, give him a little makeover, and like that whole scene, like with Justin, just he felt so uncomfortable because his dad came home with his uncle and Sadie and stuff, and he knows that he like effed up hardcore. You can tell by his acting that he just killed it. And then even when the big moment happens with Krug and Mary in the forest, just that moment when Krug is like, "Watch this, Justin, like watch," and like that look on his face where he's like helpless, but he doesn't want to be a part of who his dad is. And
Yeah.
he was a good character, dude. Honestly, like he's probably like one of my second favorite characters because he's not my favorite. My favorite actually is the dad, played by Tony Goldwyn. His name's John. He's totally my favorite, dude. And
Yeah,
I
he's a
think,
badass.
yeah, and that's probably the biggest reason why I chose him as my favorite because I can totally relate as being a dad and also just a man who wants to protect people if I can. Is that like when his daughter, dude, like when he finds out his daughter is like been raped and she has been shot and everything, dude, that whole moment, his acting there was like grade A, perfect. When he's like, oh, he's like being that loving dad, but also at the same time, he's being like a surgeon.
Yeah,
Like he has to be his profession at the same time to save his daughter's life. So he's balancing the act of being a dad and then being like, okay, I gotta make sure I'm doing this right so she can live. And it's just so freaking good, dude. And then like when he's like examining her and he realizes that she's been raped, um, dude, that moment on his face when he's just like, "Oh my god," and he's like, "Motherfuckers," and then the mom is just like, "What?" And he goes, "She's been raped," like, dude, just that look on his face and the sweat and the veins, like, dude, I just felt like Tony Goldwyn's acting in this role was just so good and convincing. I just loved his character, bro. So the dad is totally my favorite.
hell yeah.
My least favorite, get ready for this one. Surprisingly, is not one of the bad guys. Surprisingly, it's Paige, Mary's friend.
Yeah, she's the worst.
She's pretty effing bad, dude. And like, I think it's just the actress, to believe it or not, because the first time I saw this actress, Martha McIsaac, she plays Becca in Superbad. You remember that movie?
hmm
And that's the first time I was introduced to that actress. And I didn't really like her in Superbad too much. And then seeing her in this one, I also didn't really like her in this one. I think I just don't like that actress. What did you think of Paige's character in this one?
She did her job, but she was definitely very unlikable. And like, I feel like she just, I don't know if it's the actress or just the roles that they give this particular actress, but she is like always just like somebody so unlikable.
Yeah.
Like it's just like she's so airheaded. You know what I mean? There's like no sense of awareness. It's just like yikes.
Yeah, because the first time you meet her, she's working at this like convenience store, and Mary comes into town with her family, and she wants to go see Paige, and so she leaves, and she's hanging out with Paige at this convenience store, and they're talking, and that's even the moment when you realize that Mary had an older brother who ended up dying. I don't know if they ever officially announced how he died, but he definitely passed away, and Becca's like, or not Becca, that's super bad. Paige is like, Mary, I'm sorry to hear about your brother, and I would have called, but I didn't know what to say. And you kind of see their dynamic where it's like they're like best friends, but you can tell that they're kind of growing apart. Um, that's when you first get introduced to that character. But then Justin is in the store, and that's how you meet him along with the girls. And I just felt like her acting in exchange with Justin's character was not believable. And I think that acting wasn't good. Like maybe you can kind of understand this because you just watched this movie, but there's a moment where she's like, okay, it's gonna be 750, and then she does this like weird like body pop where she like kind of like, I don't know, dude, I think she's trying to be cute. She even also delivers this line when Justin's like, can I get a pack of cigarettes, and she's like, can I get some ID, and he's like, can you just kind of give me a pass, and she's like, Justin, if this was my world, of course I would, but I can't. And it's like, I don't know, like I just didn't think the dialogue for her was either written well or I didn't think that she was performing it well. But either way, I didn't really like her character. She's the one who kind of got them in trouble because she just wanted to get some weed.
Yeah.
And you don't ever go to somebody's motel to go get weed. And yeah, I don't know, just not a fan, dude. And then when she ultimately dies, like, I did not want her to die. I totally felt bad for her. And she even almost gets away. And she's so close to getting away when she sees those construction workers from like across the field and she's like yelling for them.
That's
But
one of the
she,
most infuriating parts to me, though. It's like, why are you standing and yelling, "Run, bitch"?
because if you recall, when she, if you recall, when she's running, she like twists her ankle. And so
Yeah.
she can like barely run on it. So she kind of is just like hobbling and then she like falls down and she sees them. She's like, help. And she yells, but they can't hear, obviously, even though it's like, oh, look how close. And that's actually the second time this movie pulled one of those look how close they are to safety type of moves.
Yeah.
Because the first time is when Becca, now I'm gonna call her Becca the whole time. Paige is looking out of the window or whatever at the hotel that she's at, and she sees the cop SUV car drive by through the parking lot, and she's like screaming for the cop, and he drives away. That's like the first moment. And then the second moment, obviously, is what I just said about seeing the construction workers. Um, yeah, so Paige, dude, I don't know, dude. Maybe it's just the actress, but I could have done without her. I didn't really like her too much, even though I did feel bad that she got killed at the end of it.
I feel like Paige suffers from a lot of this movie suffers from, which is just poor writing. I feel like this movie is a very good movie, and there is some really solid writing for the scenes that really need it. But then when it comes to like a lot of the supporting characters and things that are like they might seem small and not important, but are honestly very important to setting up the scene and setting up how things go. I feel like her character just suffered a lot from that, just like some of the bad guys did, which is like really poor dialogue, like awkward decisions, this really weird paced delivery. I don't know. Sometimes it just felt like some things like, especially for Paige, it just seemed like she would be kind of helpful at one point, then suddenly she would do something so weird that would just like completely fuck their situation again. So it's just like I don't understand if that was just the writing or maybe if this girl was just so bipolar that one second she's like, "Yeah, we need to get out of here," and then the next second, "Oh, I guess we should die."
Yeah, because she even does that when they're in the hotel room when she's just like she's kind of making a fuss, and Mary is looking at her like, Paige, just relax, okay? Like we'll be okay. We'll figure this out. But she was like, oh my god, and she's like flipping out, and then she even I think she hits Francis, Aaron Paul's character, and then she like runs and locks herself into the bathroom. Oh my god, though, dude! Like that moment when Francis, I want to call him Jesse from Breaking Bad, but when Francis like breaks down the door and he like hits her and throws her head into the sink. Oh my god, dude, that was so brutal. Do you remember that part?
Yeah, it was. I thought she was dead right there, dude.
She should have been, but movie logic, she's
Oh
still
yeah.
alive. But yeah, dude, like I thought that was pretty tight. And also Paige she's just the one that gets him in trouble, like you said. Like she's the one that messes things up. So I'm kind of glad she left the movie early on, but I just wish she didn't leave it the way she did. Dude, I want to talk about though the first time you meet Sadie, Francis, and Krug, and it starts off the movie with two cops have Krug in the back of their cruiser, and they're driving, and Krug is kind of just like being a wise butt, and he's talking. He's like, "Lord, please grant me a mason jar so I can take a piss," and it's like he's being kind of funny, and then the cop car gets T-boned by Francis and Sadie, and then they end up like killing the cops. Dude, I want to talk about that. Excuse me, Chick-fil-A. I want to talk about that kill when Krug kills that officer, and he wraps the seatbelt around his neck, and he's like pushing his knee into the cop's back and everything, and it's like choking out the cop. And then Krug even takes a picture of the cop's children and like holds it in front of him as the cop is dying and getting choked out and becoming lifeless. Did you enjoy that, or did you not like that too?
I thought that was awesome. That was really badass. I'm not really one of those people that like don't like this movie because of certain scenes. I think they're distasteful, but I think that like as long as they're very important because this is a revenge type movie at the end of the day. So you need to do stuff that is going to like really push the narrative that this guy is a piece of trash and is going to get his. So I really like that, and I loved how just like this is the last thing you're going to see. Like there are some really good lines in this movie. You mentioned that the dad was your favorite earlier. That the dad actually has my favorite line in this entire freaking movie. So I think that this movie has some really good lines, and I think that that scene has a really good line in it too.
Dude, what's the line from the dad? What does he say?
When Krug's like, "Do you want to hear what I did to Mary?" And he's like, "No, I want to hear you beg for your fucking life."
Oh yeah.
That part, dude, he just wrecks the dude. I love it.
Actually, to correct you a little bit, he doesn't wreck the dude, and that is one part that I completely have a problem with, but also completely love. And I'm so back and forth with how I feel whenever I see that scene, because I've seen this movie a handful of times, man. I love it. And the moment when he goes, "You want to hear what I did to Mary? You want to hear what I did to your daughter?" And he goes, "No, I want to hear you beg for your effing life." That's what me and Being Scared like to say. It's called the crowd pleaser moment, like the
Oh yeah.
moment where you're like, "Yeah, get him." But
But
It's
then
funny.
he
He
doesn't
doesn't
get
get
him
him.
though because he can't fight at all. Like,
Yeah, because he's a doctor, dude. And
yeah, it's
honestly,
pretty funny.
you have to give this movie respect for that because they didn't make him some sort of GI Joe, bro. Like
Yeah,
he's all of
yeah.
a sudden he's all he knows how to fight. You know what I mean? No, he doesn't. And that's the problem I had with the movie House of Wax that I reviewed last time with some of my friends. Is that one of the main characters in that movie at the end? She's all of a sudden like a super fighter, and
Hmm.
it's like. No, dude, there's nothing in this movie that indicated that you were a good fighter, you know, but all of a sudden you're kicking this guy's butt. And like in this movie, I like that they didn't go there and make it like cheesy, like, okay, since when did the dad become John Wick? Like he's
Yeah, I
not,
love
you know,
how realistic this movie is. That's my favorite part. That's the most redeeming part of this movie, in my opinion, is that it just is so realistic.
except for the final kill.
Yeah, that one's pretty fucking brutal. That's the part I was mainly referring to when I said that the dad wrecks him because like that is just pretty freaking sadistic and brutal.
um, okay, so I'm gonna skip past the biggest scene of the movie because we're gonna get to that here shortly. But um, did you feel tension at all when the bad guys end up going to the mom and dad's house? Did you feel like any tension or because I'm asking you because you didn't really like this movie, so I want to know like in your head when that stuff was taking place and they were like fixing Francis's nose and they were telling the story about how they got in a car wreck and they came up here to go fishing and because that's where Krug's dad used to take him, you know, like did you like all of those scenes or did you feel like it was poorly written or acted or what did you think?
I feel like for the most part that was solid. Like I felt like this is where like things this is where this movie really starts to get like ramped up in my opinion. I feel like there are some moments before that that are obviously like high, intensity and like are ramping things up. But I think right here is where like the best part of the movie begins because this is where everything we've been waiting for is about to go down. And like the slowness of the movie is finally going to cease to exist. I think the acting was pretty solid. I felt like it was just so you could cut the tension with a knife, like
Yeah.
especially with the dad and everybody's threatening the kid not to say anything because he obviously is not down with what's going on, and with the power going out and the dad having to go out in the rain and the daughter obviously dragging herself out of the lake, like at the same time, like it's just like I feel like they did a really good job of being like, oh shit, this is the boiling point, this is where everything is about to go down. So like any moment I was waiting for somebody to mess up, somebody to do something stupid. And
Oh, yeah.
yeah, I really like that subtle part though where when they're leaving and all that to go to the guest house or whatever, and Justin puts down the coffee cup with like the daughter's necklace in the thing. I thought that was a really subtle thing that they did that was very effective.
Oh, I completely agree. And every time you say something good about this movie, I'm probably going to say I completely agree because I I love this movie. But yeah, totally, dude. And I loved their demeanor. I loved their acting. I loved the tension that you can cut with a knife for sure. It was just so well done to me. And you can tell that Emma, the mom, is she keeps looking over at John, the dad, like I'm really uncomfortable with this. I'm really not a fan of these strangers who look kind of sketchy being in my house, you know, even though she's being very hospitable and she's like, yeah, you can stay at our house and stuff. You can just tell that there's like so much tension. And on the other, like, and the thing is that you as the audience member, you know, that they basically just raped and allegedly killed their daughter and they're in their house. Like, dude, it's just such high tension. And I love it, man. I love it so much. Um, there's something you said earlier in the spoiler free section where you were talking about you felt like the parents didn't really have much of a connection to marry their daughter. And I feel like I understand why you said that. And I feel like it's because you didn't really get enough time with the mom, dad, and the daughter together. Because in the beginning, you only have the mom and the daughter together while Mary is swimming and the mom is timing her, and then they pick up the dad from the hospital and then he's sleeping in the back seat, which this is one moment that I absolutely hate is when the dad is sleeping in the back seat of the car as they're driving to the house and he like wakes up and he goes, yo, what's up, and they look, the mom and daughter look at each other like, oh my god, dad is such a dork. Like honestly, I didn't really care for that part. I thought that was written and I did not like that it was written. It didn't seem natural.
Mm-hmm.
It felt like classic dad, classic dad's being a dork, and
Yeah. I
wasn't a fan
agree.
of
I
that.
don't think there's enough moments of the actual family together. I feel like they should have like replaced those parts with some actual like kind of feels good moments with all of them because like at the end like you said like you can really feel that they do care like especially when the dad discovers that she's been raped and all that. Like like at the end I really feel that like oh yeah these are parents that care. They're willing to kill for their daughter. But like that entire time before that I just didn't feel like the mom she was concerned and I could feel that but it felt like the dad wasn't too concerned and I just didn't feel like there was like that strong family bond until like obviously at the end but I feel like if they would have replaced some of those early moments where like they seemed like the family was a little more kind of doing their own thing individually and made them more of kind of a unit I feel like I would have probably gotten a better understanding of that.
I feel like they could have shortened one of the longest, drawn out, hardest to watch scenes, and they could have used some of that. And instead of had that scene carry on as long as it did, they could have used some of that to make one extra scene of the mom maybe talking with the dad about Ben, her brother that passed away. You know what I mean? And like really had that moment where she's just like, it's not the same coming here without him or something like that. And maybe you could have a moment where the dad chokes up and he's like, says something like, I know, kiddo, but go have some fun with your friend or something like that. Like just something to show that they're like still grieving because like the brother died fairly recently as far as the story was concerned. And so I
Mm-hmm.
feel like you didn't get enough of them together because the minute they get to that last house on the left, which actually I heard a different podcast say that house is actually on the right or something. It's not
feels
actually on the left.
feels bad man.
But the minute they get to that house, they walk in the house, and the daughter basically she goes for a swim in the lake, and then she comes back out and she goes like, "Hey, can I go into town and hang out with Paige?" And they're like,
Yeah.
"We just got here," and she's like, "Yeah, I know, but I want to. I'm like a teenager, and my friends are more important than my family." And I like that moment when the mom is like, Mary, no, you need to stay here for. And then the dad just like pulls out a wad of cash and he's like, here you go, have some fun. And she goes, wow, thanks, dad. Because he gives her like $200. I'm like, Jesus, dude, I wish my family was a doctor.
Right. Shoot.
That'd be
Yeah,
cool.
those are just moments that like I felt like were kind of rushed because like the only time they do even mention the brothers like very briefly in like that hotel scene before things start getting crazy and that one scene you were talking about that they could have took that was like 5 minutes within the movie, but I actually read a thing that apparently Sarah Paxton said it took like 17 hours to film that one scene.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm okay. I mean, I kind of just wanted to wait till like the very end to talk about that, but I feel like once we talk about this, it'll kind of make more what I want to talk about afterwards a little bit more important. So let's just talk about it, dude. So if anybody is very sensitive to the subject, I really do advise you to turn off this part of the podcast, maybe skip it for a few minutes because it's going to get a little graphic. And I don't want, if this has happened to you or somebody I don't want this to reflect on you and make you feel weird. So here we go, though. Mary gets raped. Okay, that's one of the big, huge things of the movie. And not only does she gets raped really violently, and it's not shown off of camera for the most part. Like for the most part, you are right up on the ground with Mary while she's being held down. You see the look in her face, you see her tears, you see the pain, like you see Krug like rip off her underwear, and honestly, it's so graphic, so brutal, and I feel like this is where you and I are going to extremely differ, but we might also agree. So let's find out. So I know you're not a fan of that scene, and I want to know, not obviously not why, because no one should be a fan of that topic, but why didn't you like that scene?
Aside from the obvious,
Right.
I just feel like the way, like, I don't feel like there shouldn't have been a rape scene, or let me get a better word so we don't get wrecked on YouTube here.
Yeah.
I don't feel like there should have been a violation. Not that I don't. Okay, I don't think that there should not have been a violation scene in this movie. I just think that I don't think we needed it to be as realistic as it was. I don't think we needed it to be 5 minutes long, and I really don't think we needed to hear, see, and essentially feel every single thing she was going through. I think that does really make it very realistic, and I think it does help make you care about her a lot more. And I do think it really does. It's very important to the movie because it does set up that solid revenge kind of, I'm gonna come for you, I spit on your grave kind of thing later. But I just feel like taste and integrity should have been, I feel like, put first and foremost when it comes to stuff like this. And I know a lot of people are going to disagree. It's horror, et cetera, et cetera. Everybody's got their opinion, but I don't. I think it was a needed scene. I just think they could have done it without having to be so insensitive, I guess, to people who have gone through it themselves. Because like movies, I feel like at the end of the day are a place for us to escape, and not a place, I guess, for us to confront some of our demons again. But that's just my personal opinion. But overall, I do think it's an important scene to the movie. But I think it could have just, you can do more tasteful for sure.
I think tasteful is definitely where they should have gone with it. And I'm not going to say like it was horrible. Like, you ever seen Cannibal or what is it? Cannibal Holocaust?
Yeah.
Okay, there's like a scene where one of those, the natives or whatever that live on that, they're like doing the same act that happens to Mary to a girl in that movie, but they're using like a skinny, thin rock. You remember
Mm.
that?
Mm-hmm.
That is distasteful to me. And that was this like all completely for shock factor. And I don't feel like this movie was for, or this scene in this movie was for the shock factor completely. I feel like a little bit of it was, but here's where I kind of disagree. And this is why when somebody's never seen this movie and I tell them how good it is, in my opinion, and that they need to watch it, I say, look, there's a certain scene in this movie. When you start seeing it, you'll know what scene I'm talking about. Watch it. Don't fast forward. Don't turn away. Watch it. And I'll tell you why. Uh, I feel like in order to get the satisfaction of killing the bad guys towards the end of the movie, I feel like you have to see what they showed you. Because imagine this, okay? Imagine somebody who kills their kid, right, in real life. Okay, you do a lot of true crime documentaries. Okay, let's take the Scott Peterson and Lacey Peterson story that you covered recently. Okay, so that guy allegedly killed his wife and his unborn child, right?
Yeah.
Okay, hearing about it is horrible. Envisioning in your mind how he strangled her, stabbed her, killed her, whatever he did, dumped her body out in the middle of the lake in a boat on Christmas Eve or whatever. Dude, thinking and hearing all that stuff is horrendous. True? Yeah. But could you imagine if you were seeing it happen? If you saw this guy murder his pregnant wife and then dump her body with the dead baby inside of her into a lake,
Oh
like,
yeah, that's a whole different ballpark, man.
yeah, you'd have some people that are like, yeah, he should do life. But if you saw this, you'd be like, yo, electric chair now. You know what I'm saying? Because
Mm-hmm.
you saw the unthinkable act happen. And I feel like even though it is hard to see this scene, even though it is rough and it's sensitive for a lot of people, I feel like if they wouldn't have really shown it, even though you would have known what happened, I feel like you're not going to be as like, yeah, dude, get him when the mom and dad start attacking them because you know what happened. You were there, you saw it. And so when she survives, you're like, oh my God. And then when the dad goes, she was raped, it's like, oh my God, like you remember that. You were there. And that's why you're like, dude, kill them. There. You know what I'm saying? Like it is like on, like Donkey Kong, dude. And that's why I'm saying like I feel like they could have shortened the scene a little bit, but leaving it in, even though it seemed a little not as tasteful as it could have been, it still was so intense that it made the get him moments towards the end of the movie that much more impactful, which made me enjoy it that much more. You know what I'm saying?
Definitely. I agree. I think it is an important scene. The only thing I disagree on is I still think they could have did it more tasteful and still made you care. Because personally, I'm not really like, I guess it just depends who you are personally. Because like, I'm not really one of those people that needs to see it to want you to be dead. So like when like say to bring up the Scott Peterson, like it's pretty much solid that he did it, whether or not people want to agree or not. I would still rather see the guy get shot in the face for it, whether or not I witnessed it or not. Just knowing that somebody went out there, killed their wife, killed their unborn baby, or you could say the other there's so many freaking cases. The Pierce family murders that I covered, where the guy killed his family, burned down the house. I was like, to me, I don't need to see it to want that person to suffer for what they did or pay for what they did, I guess. But I guess I agree at the same time that seeing it definitely sparks more rage in the average person to make them want it. Because it's easy, it's one thing to hear about it, like you said, than another thing to see it.
Yeah, I feel like they could have done a good solid blend of how you and I both feel. You know what I mean? They could have shown some of it, maybe not as much of it, but I don't know, dude. And then there's some people that are like, no, like good. I got the director's cut that shows 2 minutes extra longer, which is unfortunately what I have. And
Yeah, I
so,
watched the
yeah,
unrated version, and I was like, man, I feel like this is painfully longer than I remember it being.
it literally is, dude. It's painfully longer. But even in that moment, though, when what's happening to her is happening to her, she even like looks to the side and she sees Justin like sitting there like, up against a tree, like he can't believe what's happening right there. And she even like calls out and she's like, Justin, like help me, and he can't. He's not gonna
Her
do anything.
acting was so good in that scene, though. To be honest,
Oh
out of everything negative, she portrayed exactly what I would envision something like that being. Like, I've never seen it myself. I've only heard about it from people, obviously, but that is exactly what I would envision somebody reacting, especially if you're fighting to not have that happen to you, like so desperately, like she did, especially like when he was like ripping down her underwear, that part where she was like fighting so hard for that not to happen. That just like that sucked me into it so much more, because I was like, this is exactly what I would envision, something like this being, which isn't something you want to envision, but you know
yeah, and even Krug, man, like he makes that noise when he like begins his act, where he's just like, ah, and he's like, ah, and it's just like what he's doing, and you're just like, oh, dude, like I feel like I don't know, dude, like that kind of stuff could have been taken out. Like even just remembering the scene right now, I'm like getting uneasy, because it's like
yeah.
it was so realistic that it was rough, dude. Uh, so yeah, but then once that's done, you kind of, and it's kind of weird, dude, because you kind of get this weird feeling from Sadie and Francis where it kind of seems like they kind of feel bad for what they just did. Like now that like the intensity is over and everybody like comes back down, it kind of seemed like they were like, snap, what did we just do? Did you get that vibe at all?
Yeah, there was a couple moments within that scene, that little, I guess, jumble of scenes where it felt like they realized that, oh man, we just took this further than it should have been.
Yeah, like dang, maybe we didn't need to go that route. It seemed like they were completely fine when it came to killing Paige, though. Which, dude, Paige is down to I think like a skirt and a bra when she's down into the woods, and when they end up stabbing her, first of all, I did not think they were gonna just completely just stab her like that. I thought she had a little bit more time left, I guess, in the movie. And then when they stab her, she's just like, ah, and then you look down and the knife is into her stomach and they pull it out, dude. This movie came out 11 years ago, and that scene still looks flawless. It does not look fake at all. Like it looks like legit stabbings, and that was so brutal, dude. What did you think about Paige's demise?
I thought it was a really interesting death. I liked it a lot. The only my girlfriend's problem with it that she was like, it looked like she wouldn't have blood out of her mouth, but I think that might have been actually kind of correct, because it looked like they stabbed her like once in like the stomach area, maybe the kidney area, but like when they got her in the back, they definitely got her in her kidneys. And if you've ever like seen somebody like get stabbed or impaled in their kidney area, they definitely would spit up blood. So I felt like it was pretty accurate, excuse me, not active.
Oh crap. Well, I've never seen somebody get stabbed in the kidneys, thankfully.
I've seen some
But
stuff from the hood, bro. No, but I've unfortunately seen somebody be stabbed before.
Jesus,
So
in real life?
yeah, I've been actually quite a few times. I've lived in some not too great areas, unfortunately.
Jeez, sorry that happened, man. Uh, dang, that just got dark.
It's got really dark there. Yeah.
Well, that's crazy, man. But yeah, so she gets stabbed and killed, and even while that thing is happening to Mary with Krug, she sees her friend's dead body just laying there, and it's just like, oh my god. And then eventually, that you hear that moment when they're all trying to kind of come back down to where they were, and Mary picks up a rock out of the dirt, and she goes, "Let me just swim." And he's like, "What was that, Mary?" She goes, "I like to swim." And then she like clocks him in the face with a rock, and then she just takes off running, dude. And like in that moment, dude, you're just like, go, 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 and like run, run, run. And then she ends up like running. And dude, I love the moment when you see her running in slow motion, and then she like slows down for a second because you don't see what's on screen yet, and then she starts to like be lowered, and then all of a sudden you see that she's lowering into the lake, and you're like, oh, this is why she's a swimmer. That's why they wrote that, because she's about to try and swim and get away. And you think, dude, she's like swimming full speed, and they're shooting guns at her, and the bullets are whizzing by her. And then she's like halfway through the lake, and they're like, God dang it, like get her. And then they keep shooting. And dude, you think for a second, like, oh my God, she's gonna get away. She got raped, but she's gonna get away. And then all of a sudden, just boom, a bullet to the back, dude. And then she just rolls over, and they're like, Christ, like you got her. And it's like, Jesus, awesome. Like, let her die in the lake. And then that's like the last you see of her for a moment, dude. Like, what did you think of that scene where she's running and she gets in the lake and she gets shot?
I thought that was really well done. The suspense was there every moment. You're on the edge of your seat. You think she's gonna get away, but then that one rogue bullet gets her like right there in the shoulder, and she's like wrecked. But I thought that was interesting. I thought it was kind of dumb that they wouldn't have shot her again. I
Yeah.
don't know. Maybe that's just me being the perfectionist I am, making sure the job's done. But I felt like they did a really good job on that scene, and I felt like it really just kind of like put you in this somber mood. You're like, oh shit, like
Yeah.
like where do we go from here? And then like they go to the parents' house straight after this. You're like, oh no, what's gonna happen now? They're just gonna like wreck the family. Like I felt like it set up I feel like it set up the latter part of the movie very well, because now you don't know what to expect. You don't know if the daughter's dead, they're gonna wreck the family, or if what the family's gonna do. Like now it kind of just sets up the movie to pretty much just be whatever you can imagine, because there is no straight solid character to follow anymore.
Well, that's why I even think that uh it's how do I want to say this. That's why I think that when they get to the parents' house and stuff, like it's just so intense because like we're coming off of what we just saw. Like you think they just killed and raped that family's daughter, and then all of a sudden they're at that house, and you're just like, oh my God, this is so like crazy because we know as an audience what just happened. I got a question, dude. Do you feel like if the mom and dad never found out anything about their daughter, and if Justin never would have left that necklace, do you feel like that group would have just slept through the night and then left? Or do you feel like they would have ended up killing the mom and the dad like in the morning or something?
It's like a 50-50 for me in that part, because I kind of think that some conflict would have happened, because gosh, what's that guy's name?
Krug?
No, Krug's brother, Jesse.
Breaking Bad. You mean Francis?
I mean Francis. um, yeah, Francis. He had like some weird hots for the mom there, and was trying to kind of like, he felt like she was digging him or something. I don't know if that's just like the weird ego thing he had in that movie, but I feel like there could have been some sort of trouble or conflict just because of that. Because I feel like he probably would have tried to push further than he could have, and then since they're criminals anyway, he would have probably just tried to take it if she said no. So I feel like there could have been potential conflict regardless, but I mean, they could have potentially slipped away in the night, and then they never knew. But that would be a lot less fun of an ending.
Oh, definitely. And yeah, dude. I mean, there's always moments where you're like, why couldn't they just have done this and then it would have been done? It's like, well, because that would have been a boring movie. You got to have Hollywood stuff. You got to make it like interesting. And dude, I love that moment when Francis, it's like the middle of the night and the mom goes into the the bathroom, or not the bathroom, sorry, the kitchen to go get some alcohol or something for her daughter. And that's when he's there, and he's just like, hey, what's up? Like, I saw the way you were looking at me pretty much, right? And she's like, well, and he's like, whoa, where's your husband? And she goes, oh, he's upstairs. He's asleep. Finished off that whole bottle of alcohol. And so he's like, he'll be knocked out. And he's like, all right, cool. He's like, you got something like a little bit more adult to drink? And she's like, yeah, I got some wine. And then that's when she's like, why don't you go over there and go get it? And he turns around to go get like some cups or whatever. And he sees the picture of their, no, he does not. She goes, yeah, it's in the other room or something. Can you go get it? And so he leaves the kitchen and he goes into the living room. And that's when he sees Mary laying there on the table. And she sees him and she's like, oh my God. And then he sees her and is like, oh my God. And then, dude, like the mom just starts fighting him. And like, but the thing is, she's not a superhero. She just like hits him once and it like almost knocks him out or whatever. And he's about to go attack her. And he does. Like the bad guy starts attacking the mom and he's probably about to kill her. And then all of a sudden, like the dad comes out of off camera. And this is one of the best moments, in my opinion. Off camera, you just see like a hand kind of reach out to the mom, like, take my hand. And at first you kind of don't necessarily know who it is, but it's the dad. And he pulls her up, and then together they like fight this bad guy, and they end up putting his hand into a disposal and turning it on, and so brutal. And then they finish him off with what like was like it looked like an ice pick or like a hammer or something. The spiky part they put into his head and kill him.
Oh yeah, it was pretty brutal. Like I felt like that was a scene that took a little too long too. I was like, dude, this is taking way too long for this guy to die. It's like this guy is like they actually just like beat the crap out of that guy and he just did not die. I was just like, I felt like he would have died a while back from just getting his ass whooped so bad, but dang, shoving his hand in the freaking thing, geez.
Yeah, that was like intense, but I loved it, dude. And then the next bad guy that they take care of is Sadie. She's the next one to be killed. And what happens is that basically Krug and Sadie sorry, Krug and Sadie are upstairs sleeping, and Justin is sitting across the room from them, and he's holding the handgun. And the mom and dad go up to go kill them, and they see Justin. He basically like points the handgun at them, and they're like, like hands up, pretty much like frozen, like, okay, you got us. And then Justin like flips the gun, like, I'm not going to shoot you. Like, here, you can take the gun. It's because I think Justin at this point has had enough. Like, he's been with his uncle, he's been with his dad for this whole time, this whole ride, and he's seen a lot of what's happened. And I feel like just this whole thing that happened with Mary and Paige was just the final straw. And he's like, I'm over it. So here's the gun. Like, do what you need to do. And so they get the gun, and that's when Krug and Sadie like wake up, and then it's just kind of like, oh my God, here we go. And then they shoot. Who do they shoot? They shoot Sadie, right? Or they shoot at her, and then she ends up running to the bathroom and locking it, and then Krug jumps out the window. And then they basically go fight Sadie, and the dad is fighting a topless Sadie. She gets topless twice in this movie. And he's fighting her, and basically, like, what does he do? He ends up like shooting her through the eye, doesn't he?
Yeah, that's actually one of my biggest issues with this movie that I didn't like, is just like when they burst into the room and he shoot her, like whether it grazed her or not, like they shot this bitch in the neck.
Oh, that's right.
He just gets up and runs. I'm like, nah, fam, no. It's like, not at any time. If I got shot in the neck, whether it's grazed my neck or not, I'm not jumping right up. I don't know, but like, I thought that like she would have been a bit more hurt from getting shot in the neck, but interesting. I feel like her kill was pretty interesting as well, because like they like bashed her up against the wall a bit there, and she was actually kicking the dad's ass there for a minute.
Well, as you alluded to earlier, the dad is a MD. He is not a fighter. He's not an MMA fighter. He's an MD curer.
There were so many times where I thought the dad was actually going to die himself, and like probably should have in reality. Probably at least got a couple concussions. But
Oh yeah.
like, especially when she was like beating him with the shower rod, I was like, holy crap, is this dude going to die right now? Like,
Oh, isn't there even the moment when he gets like flipped off of the second balcony or something, like at the second story, or yeah, like the second story or something,
yeah,
and he falls onto a table?
he gets wrecked quite a bit in this
Yeah,
exchange with this lady, and then quite a bit more with the dad after it, which is, I guess, what we're moving on to now.
yeah, pretty much like the final fight of the movie is pretty much dad versus Krug, and Krug is kind of like hiding off in the shadow somewhere, and the dad's looking for him. And we already kind of alluded to this scene that they said earlier when Krug is just like, yeah, you want to know what I did to your daughter? And the dad's like, no, I want to hear you beg for your effing life. And they end up fighting. But right before that, I love the scene where he's like yelling at the dad, and he's like, he's like, what are the effing odds, man, that like your daughter is the one that we just did this to? And it's like, in a way, it's kind of comical because it's like, what are the freaking odds, dude? But then he's like, y'all did a bang up job on my brother. You killed him real good, you know? And, dude, I love that whole interaction because Krug is like I said, dude, I think he's a really great villain. He's like very nasty. He gets the job done, but he's also like in a small way, in my opinion, I feel like he's kind of charming. Do you get that vibe at all?
Oh yeah, he's a smooth talker for sure.
Yeah, dude. And I just feel like I just loved his interaction with the dad towards the end. And then when they ended up fighting, it's pretty brutal. And I loved it. And the dad, like you said, dude, gets wrecked. And he's not Mr. John Wick #3, dude. He is like he's just a dude who gets his freaking butt kicked. But just fortunately, he ends up winning. And there's even one scene when after the dad's getting like super beat up, you hear a click click from a gun, and off camera, you see like a hand pointing the handgun out, and you realize that Justin is standing there and he's got the gun pointed to his dad. And Krug is basically just like, all right, you gonna do it? Like, you gonna be a big man? You gonna kill me? And then Justin even pulls the trigger, but the safety's on. And like, dude, that moment when Krug is just like, just realized his son tried to kill him. Oh my god, dude, I loved that scene because it was just like, I knew you could have even finished the job, and then he like backhands his son.
That was one of my saddest parts too, because that's when I was like, "Oh no, he's gonna die!" Because he starts stabbing Justin. I'm like, "No!" It's like, "No, no, no, not the boy." It's like the only good part of this movie, the
He
only
had nothing
pure
to
boy.
do. Yeah,
So pure. He just wanted some weed.
I know. He just wanted to smoke weed with some hot chicks, man.
He
That's
just
it.
wanted to. He just wanted to lose the V card, bro. It was sad stuff, man. Sad stuff.
Very
Uh,
sad.
that part of the movie is actually pissed me off there for a second because like when they the fight's over, the dad well, they don't kill the dad, but they, I guess, knock him out, and then subdue him in whatever form they do. And then like they like you see them like going away in the boat, and then like I thought they like just left the kid there. Like I was like, did they just leave this kid there to bleed out? Like I thought they were leaving Justin to die, and then you see them like in there too. I'm like, that's cool. But my main question about that, and a big reason why I didn't like this movie, is actually just the ending. It's like, so what happens?
Dude, I was
They
actually just going to ask you what your thoughts about that were because I understand that Justin didn't do anything. He didn't partake in this, but it is kind of him that got Paige killed and Mary, what happened to her.
Yeah.
Because if it wasn't for him, they wouldn't have been in that situation. He should never have invited them. And that's even something that Krug says. He goes, I thought I told you like not to invite anybody back over here, but you didn't have to listen. And now because of that, look what's going to happen to these girls because of you, Justin. And so in a sense, Justin is kind of the reason this happened to them. But I wonder if at the end of it, is Mary going to tell her mom and dad, like, look, Justin didn't do anything. He tried to stop it. He's the one who tried to save me. Like, he's fine. Please don't be mad at him. Or because he was related to that group of bad guys, do you think the mom and dad are going to like have sympathy on him? Or do you think it's going to be like, look, we're going to get you some medical attention, make sure you're okay. But when that's done, like, we're calling the cops and you're going to jail. Like, I wish they would have elaborated a little bit more on that ending.
I think they kind of do in the sense when the at the very very end when they come out, and it's just the dad. I guess the dad paralyzes Krug, and it's just like, it's gonna be all good now, and everything's gonna be okay, quoting him from earlier. And then they put his head in like a microwave and explode his head. I feel like that kind of gives you the answer that like they're not really going to the police about this, because that's what it says. Like, so what happens? How what
Yeah.
they're just as much of criminals as anybody else now, if
Yeah.
not worse, because not only did uh, they killed three people, they did it in super brutal ways. I feel like the first two you could justify as
Self
maybe
defense.
self defense, but then once they paralyzed Krug and all that, I feel like that just makes you a murderer as well. So
Yeah, that's torture and that's premeditated.
So I feel like the movie kind of has a weird ending and is so open. I feel like the movie did such a good job of being realistic until the end.
Yeah.
I was like, that's the one thing that's why I gave this movie a 4. I did not like the end. The end was stupid in my opinion. Like if you would have stayed dedicated to that realism, I would have given this probably the same score as you did. Even though I don't like the scenes that are too long and there are a lot of tasteless things that happen in this movie, they are needed at the end of the day, so I can't hate the movie because they have them. And but it's just like this ending. It's just like all this for nothing essentially.
Yeah, you're right, dude. They totally had a huge sense of realism for like 99% of the movie. And then just because there's that one moment at the very end of the movie with the microwave, it kind of like cheapened a lot of the movie quality, which sucks. But I still enjoyed that final kill. But I also like though how they connected it to earlier in the movie, because when they first come to their I guess last house on the left or whatever, they notice that there's like a bottle of champagne with a card that is from Emma's brother, who they let him stay there or something. And he kind of like the dad's like, "Oh, what did he break this time?" And then he goes, "Your brother broke the microwave." And so you can tell that like he like fixed the microwave, but he like fixed it to where it could like cook somebody's head or something. I don't know what he did, but I like how they kind of tied that in from the beginning of the movie till to the end. Thought that was kind of cool.
I like the
Um,
tie-in because when Krug earlier in the movie, I think he was telling it was one of the girls. He's like, "It's gonna be okay, you know, everything's gonna be fine." And I think he killed. I think that's when he kills the other girl,
Paige.
and Paige. Yeah, I think that's when he kills her. He's telling her it's gonna be all okay. And then the dad at the end says the same thing. Oh, it's gonna be okay. It's gonna be all
Yeah.
okay.
Well, he actually tells Mary to
Yeah,
tell Paige. He goes, "Tell her, look at her, tell her she's gonna be okay." And like that's what he says. He's
yeah, yeah.
That's even worse because you know it's not going to be okay. And that kind of goes back to when he killed the cop with the seatbelt, as he was like making him look at his kids as he died. Oh my god, dude, I have kids, and like, oh, just the thought of not being with them, or me dying, or not even just dying but getting murdered, and
Yeah.
getting like as I'm dying, I see my kids and knowing what's going to come after this. And, ugh.
That's why I just hated the ending. That's such a solid start, and then you end so weak.
Yeah.
I feel like that's the only real problem that I have with that movie, outside of the obvious. But like the biggest problem that really hurts the movie is just that ending.
Yeah, it does. It does kind of hurt it, and I think it was just in there just to kind of have that really cool effect. And I'm not gonna lie, dude, like they went practical with that effect, and I
Yeah.
appreciate that because they could have easily CGI'd it, threw another $50,000 on that budget, and then CGI'd a head blowing up, and that could have looked horrible 11 years later. But instead, it still looks really good.
Can we also just bring up real quick that for a $15 million budget, this movie was kind of shite?
I,
Because
I will.
let's be real, like all the actors and actresses did their own stunts. If you look at the beginning of the movie when they're in the hotel, they actually filmed the wood scenes before. So if you look at their legs, they have bruises and stuff all up of them, and they tried to cover it with makeup, but I guess it just didn't work. But like, okay, if you had $15 million, you couldn't. I just feel like they could have did so much more. Like, let's bring it back to Grave Encounters. $150,000. The movie looks way better in my opinion with certain things when it came to injuries and all that. And I just felt like for $15 million, they some of that stuff should have looked better and been done better, maybe.
Okay. Yeah, I can agree with that. Yeah, I'm actually as I'm having so much fun doing these podcasts, dude, because I'm finding out like scores, budgets, who's directed, who stars, all that stuff, and I really am surprised with some of the movies that I've seen that have huge budgets and then aren't that good. And then I've seen some movies like you said, dude, Grave Encounters one that has 150,000, and that movie was killer, dude. Like no pun intended. And it was like super good, and it did not have a huge budget at all. It barely even had a budget, and they were able to accomplish great feats with that movie. So movies like this, I could see why it could be a little bit of a turnoff. Like you had so much potential, and some parts of it weren't as good. I guess I don't know. But yeah, dude, is there anything else you want to talk about with this movie, or anything you want to say? Any scenes you want to bring up? Because I pretty much said everything I wanted to say.
I pretty much said everything I think that I could say about this movie. Ultimately, it's just one of the better revenge movies out there. I'd say if you're a big fan of, Spit on Your Grave and all those movies, I would say this is definitely one that you would want to watch and add to your repertoire.
Yeah, I think it's an overall just fun time, and maybe some people might not think it's written very well or acted very well, but there's no denying that once the second act kicks in, which is when the family meets the killers, pretty much like from that point on towards the end of towards the end of the movie, it's just it's insane, it's intense, and I think it suffers in the beginning, but also exceeds in the end because there's not as much dialogue and everything. It's just more like action and cool kills. So I kind of feel like if you don't like the beginning, you'll probably like the end at least, or I mean like the last half of the movie. But yeah, dude. So I think that's pretty much it. It's gonna wrap this one up, episode 24. Um, Always a pleasure, man, having you on the cast, and I know that you and I talked about doing a lot more episodes together, and I've got a bunch that I want to do with you. So thanks for being on, dude, and that's gonna wrap it up. So I'll see you on the next one.
Oh yeah, man. See you then.
All right, later, brother.